Hey everyone, a lot of stuff is happening out there, but also here I'm setting up the back room, switching up everything. So I'm setting up for a podcast that I'll be working out there. I had to move a lot of stuff, and then I'm setting up the computers and a few things. But let's get on to what's going on with Pakistan, India, what's really behind it. That Pakistan has nuclear weapons. They're threatening to use it. But this is an old skirmish that's connected to, of course, your favorite people again, the CIA, which are the Jesuits, because a lot of the people, the heads inside the CIA, sit on the Jesuit Council. They're part of the Vatican, MI6, Mossad. The same stuff we've been talking about for a long time, and how the globalists control large parts of China through the Jesuits. And I was talking about the Rothschilds creating banking systems almost 200 years ago through China. They created the CCP after they created the projects over in Russia having to do with communism that was created by the globalists, the Rothschilds. They were funding them with the JEWS. So that's the Khazarians, the old Khazarian tribes. When we talk about JEWS, we're not talking about all of them. We're talking about the northern tribes that stole the identity of the real JEWs, which are really good people. They're also fighting a revolution against the fake JEWs in their countries. And I don't want to get flagged, so I'm spelling words here. So this skirmish over in Pakistan, it goes all the way back to the 1940s when Pakistan became a country. And the OSS, and back then the globalists, the powerful families, were already running children out of Pakistan. And then they wanted to run the children out of Afghanistan. And there was a bunch of human trafficking. There was already money laundering going on. And then they wanted to bring in the heroin also that was coming from Afghanistan. So they were running it through Pakistan. They were running it through the first ports. So what's going on with Pakistan and India? It's kind of a false flag operation because of what's going on with Trump, with the Epstein, with the exposure of the pandemic, the virus, everything, the vaccines, the military coup of what's happening. But Pakistan is part of all of this corruption that's also going on inside the United States, because the SIS, which is the Pakistan Military Intelligence, the CIA brought them into the United States, the military intelligence. And you have certain people that were hired to work for the DNC. The reason why they brought in tech support was that way the CIA won't be directly involved if somebody got caught. The United States won't be directly involved if somebody got caught. United States deep state intelligence wouldn't be involved if somebody got caught. If something happened, they have this spider web that you can hide through, and you can blame another country, or else they can kill the story. You know how they kill stories through mainstream media? Well, they happen to do that with a guy named Imran Amwan. So they brought him into the United States, and he was working for the intelligence over from Pakistan. And he started doing all the tech support for the DNC, the Democrats. Now, all of these human smuggling operations from Afghanistan, the military is running these operations where they have all these little kids, these little boys that they're grooming, that they're having the ped operations with the pedo stuff. And they're called the dancing boys over in Afghanistan. And the military is part of it, the intelligence. It's a huge thing there of where these sex rings are. Now the CIA wants to bring them into the United States, and they're going on through Pakistan in the 1950s, and they're bringing them in the 60s, the 70s. Now, those children are going to be in the United States. That's what you hear about when you hear about the Clinton emails, or talking about John Podesta emails, when they're talking about, when Obama's asking for hot dogs, he's asking for the party, bring all the kids. And, this is when John Podesta is saying they're coming. And these are the codes that the FBI was telling you of, asking for different sauces, like some of these codes. Like one of them is a like walnut sauce, So this walnut sauce is what they're talking about. These brown kids from Pakistan. These are the kids from Afghanistan and in these countries in the corner of India. So those are code names for these little kids when they talk about walnut, walnut sauce. So they have all of these different codes, and that's what Obama was asking for. So this guy from Pakistan, this Anwar, he's working for the DNC. The CIA put him there, and then he's working with another team, and they're taking care of all the servers for the DNC, and they're running some pedo operations. Now Seth Rich is going to get killed because of this. But at the same time, Seth Rich was also giving information about the Clinton servers. He was giving information over to WikiLeaks. A large part of the reason why that he was killed by the CIA and they had the contracts, it was through the ISI from Pakistan. And this Anwan and the other teams, they killed him because the CIA didn't want to be traced back to this. So they have a spider web of how, they protect each other. So it doesn't come back to the United States intelligence. It doesn't come back to people inside the United States, the Democrats. It doesn't come back to Israel. It doesn't come back to this stuff, the Mossad. So they kind of outsource these operations to other countries, like the way they did it to Pakistan. So these operations, Seth Rich was exposing, and he wanted to talk about all of these different operations, of these pedo operations with the DNC. That's why Seth Rich is really important. That's why I was telling you 2 years ago, we're going to come back to Seth Rich. And it's because of this reason. That's the reason why Trump was talking about this in 2016, 2017, when they were talking about Russiagate and they were trying to blame him. But Trump was kind of saying that's not important. What's important is, where are those servers? Where are all of those computers? Who is this person that's from Pakistan? And Trump was asking all of these questions because Trump knows what happened. Trump has the intelligence. Later on, he's going to get arrested, this guy inside the United States, for fraud. But the computers, the servers are all going to disappear that he had. Then, of course, mainstream media is going to bury the story. But then they're also going to say that it's just conspiracy, that, he was working with DNC, that they had hired him, and it's just conspiracy. So they're going to bury all of that story. But through the wires, through the cables, I knew that this was coming back, the Seth Rich story. That's why Trump was talking about Seth Rich 2 years ago. That's why Trump is talking about Anthony Weiner, the laptop, because this is all going to start to come back. Now, at the same time, I told you what's happening in Pakistan with India is sort of like a false flag event. That's the deep state in India, the intelligence that's creating that, because Mossad, MI6, the globalist operations, the Jesuits, the CIA, the globalists, they want a war. This war is just a huge, gigantic false flag event because they're trying to kill the story in the United States of what's happening with the exposure of everything that Trump is bringing out. But at the same time, it's not a false flag event. When I say that, I'm talking that the white hats inside of Pakistan, the white hats inside of India, the white hats inside of China, the white hats inside of Afghanistan, these countries, they want the exposure of the deep state of their countries. And the only way to bring exposure is through a near nuclear war, the same thing, because it's going to initiate the storm operations. Now, I was telling you that China's collapsing. They're in a huge, gigantic collapse. You have all of these ghost cities because the Chinese people, they can't invest. There's not a normal way for them to invest how we do it in Western countries because the CCP control almost all the investments inside the industries, inside their markets. One of the few ways that the Chinese people can invest is inside of housing. So they took a huge, gigantic gamble about 18 years ago. They started building cities. People started jumping on this investment trade. People started making money. And then there was a huge boom. They started building malls, more cities. Out in the country, they started building all of these different cities. And people were getting money, the citizens through their investments, the Chinese people. But it was a scam. About 10 years ago, it kind of started slowing down. All of these cities that they built, nobody was moving into them. And then about 5 years ago, they noticed that a lot of their investments for other cities that they were supposed to build, there was no construction going on. There was absolutely no construction. Their money had disappeared. And then about 2 years ago is when they really began to catch on that there's nobody living in these cities. There's no jobs, there's no trains, there's nothing running. That's because the CCP created a huge, gigantic scam with the globalists to take the people's money. They were running all of these fraudulent operations of building these cities. So these cities that you hear about in China that are empty, those are the ghost cities. Those are the scams that they created to take all the people's money, to keep them poor, to keep them control. But now that huge, gigantic pyramid is crumbling. And since January, millions of people haven't been paid inside of China. The young kids that are working haven't been paid. People are quitting. There's no trains running in a lot of these different provinces because nobody's going to work. With the Trump tariffs, it's creating a huge, gigantic wave of collapse. That's why there's people inside a revolution and people are dying inside of this revolution. And they're all going against Z and they all want their money. So at the same time, about the Belt and Road Initiative that China was creating, this huge, gigantic network that went across Asia into Europe. And it's this huge, gigantic network that they were investing hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars into the trillions in these past 10 years. And they've been taking over countries like Sri Lanka. They were taking over countries like Pakistan. They were building all of these different ship ports. And they were the creditors that was giving the money to these countries, to these industries. But what they were doing was really that they knew that these poor countries couldn't pay back the money. And instead of paying back the money, they took over parts of their industry. And then they were allowed to take control of certain ports for even up to 100 years, 90 years. As they did over in Pakistan, they built all by the ocean side. All these shipping ports they took control of. But those shipping ports, it's a corridor that goes from the oceans by Pakistan. It goes all the way up into China, those corridors. So China had invested hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars into Pakistan, building this road of where they're transferring, weapons, where they're smuggling drugs, human trafficking that's running. The same thing from Afghanistan, the dancing children, the military pedo operations also inside of Pakistan. Those children were being moved all through the world to different places. But there's a lot of corruption to the drugs that's running through those trade routes, weapons. Now China is inside a predicament because China doesn't want a war with India. But at the same time, China is scared because this war is going to bankrupt China. Because all their infrastructures that they created inside of Pakistan along the border of India that goes all the way to the ocean, it's all being bombed and they're losing hundreds of billions of dollars. But they don't want to fight with India because Russia doesn't want to give them support. Now, all of these countries that China was giving money to, from Sri Lanka all to the African countries into Europe, building this huge, gigantic trade that China was going to control all the trading routes that they were creating through these countries through the Belt and Road Initiative project of China. Now that's all collapsing because these countries don't want to give China money now because they're being blackmailed and they're holding all their money back, and China is collapsing and they're in panic right now. So these world operations of the deep state, it's not only about creating wars, that it's not only about the drug trade, the heroin trade that's connected to the pharmaceutical companies, of why the Vietnam War was created, and all that finance helped build Hong Kong. They helped create the CCP, all of these projects. But this is about human trafficking. This is what the 17 operations is about. This is what the World Store operations is really about. Because freeing the children, but then having all the evidence also, that will go against all the different leaders around the world, different politicians, different agencies, law enforcement agencies, through different countries that are corrupt, from India to Pakistan, Afghanistan, into Asia, into China. All of these are storm operations. That's why it's really vital what Trump is doing, Kash Patel, the United States military intelligence, that they have the information of Epstein. They have all the servers, and I told you, now it's been confirmed, my comms. I had told you at the end of April that Kash Patel has all the evidence already. He got a hold of it from New York City, and then he sent it out to all the field offices. And there's a bunch of pedo stuff in there with children, kids. There's videos, there's a lot of stuff, and there's thousands of hours of videos, but there's witnesses, and there's a lot of people involved, a lot of victims, into the hundreds. Now, Pam Bondi, that's all been confirmed now. But these operations that's connected to Pakistan is the same thing as connected to this blackmail operation. There's a part that's going to get you mad a little bit. It's something you don't understand. Trump is sitting on some of the most powerful blackmail operations that exist in the world. He has that evidence from different countries of their pedo operations, from USSF, from all of these powerful computers that people call the Kraken computers, all of these different computers since 2014. It has to do with these intelligent computers that I keep telling you, advanced computers. They went through all the systems in the world and they got all the evidence and it collected all the data. They didn't even have to get the servers, but they got all the videos, they got all the data, they got everything. When Trump came into power, the deep state knew that the people behind him from Cheyenne Mountain, the United States military generals, the white hats, they were in control of all the blackmail operations that's connected to the wars, connected to creating the pandemic, created to a worldwide money laundering operations. Now Trump is letting everybody knows that he has everything, especially now that he came back into power. Trump is sitting on this very, very powerful leverage, this very powerful tool, and he's leveraging countries with all of this, of the evidence that he has on every country, even through Africa, through Europe. He has it on all the leaders. He has it on all the top politicians. He has it on their intelligence agencies. He has it on their military. He has it on all the people inside the banking systems. These pedo operations is bigger than you can imagine. It's the real pandemic. But Trump has this. As I'm making this broadcast, as I'm making this, 2 days ago, Trump was already talking with the intelligence from ISI and then also from the leader of Pakistan. And Trump gave him a warning, say, stop this war. What you're doing with India, you have to stop this now, or else I'm going to leak a lot of videos and the photos with you and your government, what you're doing with the children. So Trump is using this leverage to stop wars. Trump is using this leverage that people listen to what Trump is going to do with their country, to connect their countries over to a United States system, financial. But also Trump is going to use this to make sure that they initiate their storm operations to start bringing down their own deep state, to make sure that the people rise in all of their countries through these operations of fourth, fifth, sixth generation warfare. But people don't know that they're being swayed to go into a revolution to get the exposure of what's really happening. So it's not only black hats that create these generation warfare to sway the people's minds into a certain direction. White hats are using this. And I keep telling you, it has to look like every country is going to fight for their revolution to expose the corruption. And inside that revolution, they're going to hear about all the pedo operations. So that's happening in Afghanistan already. The white hats in Afghanistan want help, and they're getting all the information of how to bring down their corrupt system with all of these pedo operations that's been going on since the 1950s, moving these children around the walnuts. And that's connected to Afghanistan, that's connected over to China, that's connected over to India, those brown children that they're moving all through the world. So this is a huge, gigantic, massive undertaking that Trump is taking. So that's why he's teasing people, not the American government. He's actually teasing the deep state when he says, I'm going to release this, I'm going to get to this. But he's actually using it as leverage behind the scenes. So, like I said, 2 days ago, Trump went after Pakistan and he had conversations with them at the highest level to say, stop trying to initiate World War III. We know what you're doing. We know the CIA is part of this. We know the globalists are doing this. You better stop this, or else I'm going to leak all the information out. And that's going to create a huge war, a civil war inside of your country. And you guys are going to be killed. Everybody's going to be overthrown. Your family's homes will be ravaged, everybody. So all these generals, all of these leaders are scared of a revolution. They're scared that the people will come and burn their homes down, that their people, the deep state will get killed, they'll be hunted. So Trump is trying to make everything come out in a legal way for these countries to expose the operations. So these are very, very sensitive operations of what Trump is working with. So it's no coincidence that I told you, even weeks before that, Kash Patel has all the evidence. He sent out all the data, the servers to all the agencies through the United States and through the world. And all these different FBI branches are sifting through everything. So it's no coincidence that Kash Patel puts this out in the morning time. Pam Bondi makes a statement saying that the Epstein pedo videos are out there. The FBI is going through it over the field offices. And then Kash Patel says the FBI and 55 branches are going through a lot of evidences. And then over 200 people were arrested in sting operations connected to the pedo operations. Then Dan Bongino comes out and says that they're going after all of these operations involving kids and how they're going to protect the kids. And then in the same day, in the same evening, James O'Keefe comes out with the fixer, the guy that was always fixing all the problems that was connected to Prince Andrew. He was part of the Majesty, the UK court. So this guy, John Bryan, is a heavy hitter. He's a crisis manager for the UK Majesty. You know, he was friends with Diana. He was friends with Prince Andrew. He knows everybody. And he's known as the fixer. Now, if you understand what a fixer is in the mafia term, they come in when somebody gets killed, when something bad happens, they fix everything because they're connected to intelligence. They're connected to inside information. They know how to blackmail people. They know how to threaten people. They know how to kill people. They know how to move information through reporters, through news agencies. This guy, John Bryan, exposed that Epstein was, having sex with kids and children. And James O'Keefe has this, and James O'Keefe is coming out with a lot more stuff. And I was talking about that this was going to happen behind the scenes. Musk is funding these operations through subsidiary investors and operations that's going on, which is actually connected to USSF operations. These huge, gigantic operations that you're seeing, it's unfolding on a world stage that you don't really understand. At this moment, there are the United States striker brigades inside the United States along Arizona, Texas, California. They're going to get ready to go into Mexico. They're getting a lot of data reports from all the military satellites. The 10th Division Army Military Brigades, this 10th Division is also over in Arizona, over in New Mexico. There's other brigade divisions on the other side of Mexico, south of Mexico. And they're all getting ready to go after the cartels. They're waiting on Trump's word. Inside of Mexico, there's other United States paramilitary white hats that are working with the Mexican military forces, training them how to use the new equipment, urban combat, military combat up in the mountain zones, working with the United States military. And then inside the Gulf of America, there's warships that just now came in. So there's a lot of stuff with all the CIA operations. The good people inside the CIA, there's still 25% of them around there. The white hats are over in Mexico. They're running a lot of operations inside of Mexico right now, and they're working with all of these military divisions, giving information at the same time. The USSF, the satellites are all stationed over in Mexico. Eventually, all of this human trafficking that's coming through Mexico, all of these immigrants, a lot of these children are missing over in Mexico. Also, they disappeared, and you have all these kids that disappeared, over 300,000 that disappeared during Biden administration, but a lot also disappeared in Mexico. There's operations to expose the kids that disappeared in Mexico. It's going to be connected to an epidemic inside of Mexico that's going to be revealed. There's a lot of things happening behind the scenes through the world to help save the world, because the number one pandemic, the epidemic, is the pedo operations, the human trafficking operations. You know, what's happening with these sex rings, using humans for this, using children for this. So the plan to save the world, you don't just save the United States. Trump is working at high levels with the alliance and all of these different countries to bring in the world storm. Because if you don't fix Pakistan, if you don't fix India, if you don't fix China, if you don't fix these Asian countries with all of these pedo rings that was created by the CIA, the OSSF, through the Jesuit systems, because I keep telling you, the Jesuits are actually the intelligence of the Vatican that was created in the late 1500s. Then they restructured the Catholic systems. Then they took over control of a lot of institutions through the world. And then they created a lot of people through these institutions like Harvard, all of these advanced schools, universities. And these people became judges. They became lawyers. They became into a lot of these different powerful leaders inside of governments. The Jesuits have a large, gigantic sway. So Trump was giving you calms, like I said in the last video, when Trump, shared a picture of himself being the Pope, but he had one finger up. And the timestamp on that is connected to 17 posts. And this is connected to where we go one, we go all. And he's talking about the storm operations that's taken place. So you're watching all of these military operations. That's why it wasn't coincident all in one day when Pam Bondi talked about the new Epstein videos that everybody's going through, Kash Patel, the arrests, and then James O'Keefe coming out with what's going on with Prince Andrew and how that's going to erupt, how that's going to evolve, because there's more stuff that's coming down the pipeline. Now we're coming into the exposure of Pakistan. Trump is going to go after this in due time. Kash Patel, Department of Justice, is going to go after what happened. Seth Rich. It's really important because this connects the Clintons. This connects the Pizzagate. This connects all of those operations inside the United States that's blackmailing Congress, that's connected over to Israel, Mossad operations, that's connected to the military coup, the corruption of the deep state military industrial complex, but also with the deep state intelligence agencies that's pulling a coup. Everything is coming out together in stages in a huge, gigantic collision course. So when you think nothing is happening, it's actually the opposite. Trump has just taken down China with tariffs. Trump has taken down China with an alliance that's working behind the scenes in these different countries, and Trump is telling them not to repay back China for the Belt and Road Initiative projects. The military is ensuring that China is being blocked off from a lot of stuff in those CCP operations connected to the Jesuits, the Rothschild banking systems, because they were running the human trafficking operations. So the plan to save the world, it actually includes the whole world, a thing that nobody has ever done before. You know, people never talked about the communist regime in China. Everybody just works with them. Everybody just listens to them. Instead, they talk about the corruption of the United States, the corruption of senators, this corruption, but nobody ever talks about this huge, gigantic corruption of the CCP that was running the world drug trade, running these huge, massive bank systems running through Hong Kong, Beijing, connected to the UK Majesty, connected to UK banks, JP Morgan. Trump is collapsing a huge, gigantic, deep state infrastructure, financial system, and pedo operations. He's blocking it down. Behind the scenes right now, Trump is talking with India, and he's ensuring that Pakistan does not start World War III. He's actually stopping World War III that the deep state is trying to use Pakistan, the CIA operations, to initiate this huge chaos because they're scared of what Trump is doing, what Trump is coming out with, how Trump is blocking all the financial systems through USAID, through the Federal Reserve, through all of these black budgets of what the government is doing. Trump is doing so much more than humans can even imagine about, but he's not talking about it because these are operations behind the scenes, the plan to save the world. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening. You know, even before the arrests of the judges last week, days before I was telling you they're going to get ready to arrest judges, a lot of stuff is going to come out. Then that happened. Now you're hearing stuff with Letitia James. You're hearing a lot of different things, but there are indictments of judges. There are indictments of lawyers across the state that's already taken place. Like I told you before, weeks before, I said Kash Patel is in possession of all of the information and he already sent it out. Now that's all confirmed with the Epstein stuff. And there's indictments that's being created. There's investigations that these FBI branches are reaching out to all the victims around the world. They're looking at all the perpetrators and the videos. They're identifying them because there's thousands and thousands of videos. You know, there's hundreds of victims, there's hundreds of witnesses. It's huge, it's massive. At the same time, there's indictments going on against lawyers in the United States, especially in the blue states. A lot of stuff is coming. You're actually watching already the beginning of the arrest wars taking shape. You're watching the plan to save the world. Have faith, everyone.
Pam Bondi said something this morning that shook me to my very core and chilled me to the bone. Are you ready? Ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
James Comer said yesterday that all the Epstein files are missing. Can you confirm that? They still haven't heard from you.
No, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that.
55 field offices to take down child predators. Our agents support these teams. Partners did excellent work. I know that there was a press conference here that we posted. Here it is. Kash Patel and Pam Bondi announcing their arrest of 200 child predators. Good. Fantastic. Amazing that Bondi goes straight from we have the physical evidence of the predators from Epstein to this, to Dan Bongino saying one final thing, and then we'll get into the senator here. This is the thing. This is it, okay? This is it. You will be hunted, you will be caught, and you will be arrested.